So our next speaker, Sterling Anderson, leads Tesla's Autopilot programs. He came to Tesla from MIT's Robotic Mobility Group, where he paved the way for advances in cooperative control of human-machine systems. As you probably are aware, Tesla is adding autonomy to its products in an incremental way without asking permission, providing an advancing suite of semi-autonomous and autonomous capabilities in over 70,000 privately owned vehicles by simply updating the software program. Sterling, please.
Thanks, Jason. I will amend the start of your intro about asking for permission. We do allow users, obviously, to opt in to updating their software, lest you be concerned about any Teslas becoming self-aware. Today I'll talk to you a little bit about Autopilot. Autopilot is the term that we use to describe the rapidly advancing suite of autonomous, semi-autonomous, and driver assistance systems operating on Tesla vehicles worldwide. I want to talk in particular today about the fundamental role that Autopilot plays in advancing the mission of Tesla. Now, these are two dots that don't often get connected, and they're two dots that we haven't actually often spoken about, but they're very important, and that's why I'd like to start the talk. By addressing that mission, the mission of Tesla is to to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable transportation. Now, if you unpack that mission, there are two fundamental pieces that go hand in hand and need to be addressed together. The first, and where I think a lot of the public is aware and focused in terms of what we're doing at Tesla, is on making our transportation resources more efficient. The second is equally as important and less focused on, although sort of both of the other speakers in this session have addressed them briefly, and that's making more efficient use of those transportation resources. So the first is a problem that needs, I think, needs little motivation. That is specifically our transportation resources are not very efficient today, and they're not getting very efficient as quickly as we'd like. And what you see here is the average light-duty fuel efficiency in miles per gallon over time, the last several years. We haven't been particularly pleased with the pace of this improvement, one. And two, we recognize that the large majority of these transportation resources are fundamentally constrained by the need to extract, refine, and combust fossil fuels, which leads to significant issues for our environment and for the sustainability of transport. So job one for Tesla then was to develop and rapidly introduce in an increasingly down-market fashion and in higher volumes a set of compelling electric vehicles that would both increase the efficiency drastically relative to today's transport resources, but also rapidly increase the adoption of electric vehicles. And we've been very pleased with the results, leaving us with cars in production today that get the equivalent of about 100 miles per gallon of a traditional car, but able to do so off of energy sources that can be completely renewable and not require any extraction, refinement, or combustion of fossil fuels. And we've been very pleased with the response as well. I think Tesla has been the fact that we've got now nearly 400,000 pre-orders for a car that's over a year away from production still, I think is a compelling argument that people are interested in advancing this mission, that the public recognizes the significant need to advance and accelerate our transition to sustainable transport. Now, part two of this mission is the one that I'd like to focus on today. Here are a few stark statistics about the extremely inefficient use of our transportation resources, regardless of how efficient those resources are, whether this is a Tesla or a conventional internal combustion engine vehicle. Accidents are obviously a big problem. 33,000 deaths approximately per year in the United States alone. That number balloons to about 1.25 million worldwide. If you look at traffic, 5.5 billion hours wasted each year. And this is the United States alone. That's been estimated to contribute about 56 billion pounds of additional carbon dioxide emissions to the environment. 56 billion pounds. 2.9 billion gallons of fuel have been estimated to be burned just from traffic. That's enough to fill the Superdome 4 times over per year. Finally, when we get into parking, it's been estimated that in the United States alone about 1,700 square miles are covered in parking spaces for vehicles that get used less than 5% of the time. Typically about 95% of the time they're sitting idle. And this is wasting land that, were it repurposed, Aaron Ben-Joseph at MIT estimated that this could generate about 1 billion kilowatt hours annually of electricity. That's enough to power about 3.2 billion miles on today's Teslas. Right? Were 50% of this land for parking spaces repurposed or reforested, that reforestation alone could contribute 800,000 tons of oxygen to the environment. It could remove about 1.2 million tons of carbon dioxide from the environment. These three statistics are, I think, stark examples of the inefficient use of transportation resources. And they're three things that autonomy is uniquely posed to address. And so part 2 of our mission, or part 2 of our responsibility for accelerating the advent of sustainable transport, was to accelerate autonomy. And we had to do that in 2 ways. What you see here is the typical adoption S-curve for safety features in automobiles. It could be equally, I think, applied to other vehicle features. Specifically, what you see here is analog brakes, electronic stability control. They all follow this pattern. As Chris mentioned, the turnover in the US market for automobiles is about 15 years. If you add to that the development and introduction of these features that typically start as optional features on higher end vehicles and filter their way down, you're looking at 30 to 40 years of lost time in the introduction of these features, primarily as a result of two fundamental constraints. One, the lack of the hardware in vehicles that are going into production and going into circulation. And so it just doesn't go in them. And then 2, the lack of the know-how in terms of feature development and technology development to put new software on these vehicles. 18 months ago, we set out to solve both of these. We thought it was fundamentally unacceptable that generations should have to wait for these improvements in safety and efficiency of our vehicles. And so we started with a leap of faith. We started installing on every one of our vehicles quietly. We actually said nothing about it initially. We started installing several pieces of hardware that we knew would allow us incrementally over time to improve the capability of these cars, improve their safety, improve their efficiency, and ultimately improve the quality of life for those driving them. The first was 12 ultrasonic sensors around the car that gave us a pretty good view of both hard and soft objects. The second was forward-facing cameras, forward-facing radar. And finally, GPS and high-precision digital maps. With this suite, we also added a very important piece of the puzzle, which is the ability to pull high-resolution data from these vehicles with which to accelerate this development, and the ability to update the vehicles over the air to allow the incremental rollout of additional features with these connected vehicles. What we then did is turned our attention to a very rapid development cycle. Remember, this was 18 months ago we started putting this hardware on cars. At the time, we were very far behind the curve in terms of advanced safety features and autonomy. So what we then did is began with a very rapid development cycle that leveraged uniquely the existence of the hardware in the fleet and our ability to pull data from it and our ability to update software on the cars. So that began with every feature we'd roll out in a module. As we conceived it in-house, we would then run it through several simulations. What my guys affectionately refer to as the gauntlet, which is sort of a large set of data through which we simulate each of these new features to ensure that on the net it improves the safety and capability of the car. We then go to in-house validation, so we will my whole team will have access to Tesla vehicles that they can then drive and be developing this software and confirming that it's well suited. Post this in-house validation, we will install in a logging fashion an inert feature over the air on all of our vehicles worldwide. Today, that's about 70,000 vehicles with significant coverage. And what that allows us to do is watch over tens of millions of miles how that feature performs. This is in an inert fashion. We don't even have to turn it on. We can just see, okay, in this scenario or that, how would the feature have behaved? We iterate, we develop it in-house, and within a matter of weeks to months, we are then able to activate the feature on these vehicles once we've confirmed that it is fundamentally safer, both in simulation, also in in-house validation, but also in the field from the empirical data we've been able to gather from our customers' cars, that this, in fact, is a feature that is better on the net than what's in production today. And then we iteratively test and improved it. What that's led to is a rapid rollout of several features, both safety and convenience focused. As I mentioned, 18 months ago, we released Autopilot. A couple of big milestones on this month-to-month schedule of rollouts that's taken us from where we were before. A couple of big ones last October, so about 7 months ago, we released what we refer to as auto steer. When combined with our traffic-aware cruise control, this set of features will allow the car to manage most things on a highway, both in terms of advising the driver as to sort of what his surroundings look like, what the car sees, as well as controlling it to keep it in lane, adjust its velocity to prevent collisions, follow other vehicles on the road, and change lanes on the indication from a turn signal. Then again in January of this year, we introduced the bookend to Highway Autopilot. So effectively, what Highway Autopilot did on the highway, we introduced Summon to do in the driveway. Summon is a feature we developed to allow safer, more convenient parking of a vehicle in tight spaces or in one's garage. It allows one to remotely activate a parking feature that will send the car to a garage while the user monitors its surroundings. The car will open the door, it'll find its way into the garage, into a parking spot, and it'll close the door behind it. That we call Summon. These are sort of bookends or modules that we've released, and as the technology advances, we will connect these dots. And that's what's referred to by this incremental rollout of features with Autopilot. Today, as per our ethos, every single car coming out of our factory in Fremont has all of the hardware in it to perform these capabilities, and every safety feature that we develop and that we're constantly improving upon goes in every single car, because we don't think that should be optional. Now, there are a few optional features that allow one to use their car in a bit more of a convenient fashion. Those include a few of the features that I've just referenced. And we'll, I think at the end of this talk, we'll play a quick video as Jason and I are getting up on stage, and you can see sort of what some of these things look like in action. Now, I mentioned earlier the importance of a connected fleet, and I can't understate this importance. See, while we use simulation, and I think a lot of us use simulation for things, we have not found we have found that there is no substitute for empirical real-world data. As Chris highlighted, the world is an incredibly weird place, right, with a lot of very strange things that happen that we wouldn't even think to simulate. This is where the data that we're extracting from these cars becomes so incredibly important. For a little bit of sense of scale, since in introducing this hardware on these cars in October of 2014, 18 months ago, we've accrued 780 million miles on these cars. All of that data being on our servers to allow us to query, to look for things that are happening, how users are using the cars, how the features are performing, where we can improve things. Since just in the last 7 months, so since the October release of Auto Steer, 100 million miles have been driven by our customers with Autopilot, which includes traffic-aware cruise control or Auto Steer. Today, we pull in 2.6 million miles per day of data from our cars. Jason was asking me at the beginning of the session how long it takes us to accrue 1 million miles. It's about 10 hours right now. 10 hours. So this is important. What you see in the background of this slide is actually a high-resolution map that's been generated from the data that's coming from this fleet. It allows us to see at a high level of precision how the cars are being used, what lanes they're driving in. It allows us to see such things as what their position in the lane is. This is real data. This is a month of real data from our fleet. Histograms showing how our cars behave relative to their position in lane when the user is driving manually versus how they tend to perform in terms of lane keeping when autopilot is engaged. You'll notice quite predictably, autopilot holds a much tighter line. I think Car and Driver referred to it as a cruise missile. We hold very tightly to the center of the lane while avoiding or biasing the vehicle's position in lane only to avoid other vehicles or other obstacles to either side of the vehicle. This kind of data, but in spades, is what the team is using to develop, refine, and introduce these features. And it's an important part of what's allowed us in the course of 18 months to go from a very behind the curve in autonomous and semi-autonomous features to what today is in Autopilot is, I think, widely recognized as one of the more advanced autonomous and semi-autonomous features in existence. It's a little bit about Autopilot, where it fits in our mission and how we develop it. Thank you for your time.
So by asking permission, of course, I meant asking permission of the government. If you didn't hear what he just said, let me repeat it. Chris Urmson, over the history of Google Car, has accumulated about 1.5 million driverless miles. He does 1 million miles every 10 hours. What have you learned from that experience? And here it is, and here it is working behind us.
Yeah, I mean, you probably won't listen to me while this is playing. So take a look. This is what Autopilot. This is just an illustration of a few of the features. What you see here is highway autopilot. This is an auto lane change, and the car is performing. You saw there at the beginning as the user via smartphone pulled the car out of the garage or commanded the car to pull itself out of the garage. You'll see at the end a brief illustration of some of the auto park features that the vehicle is equipped with. The overlay here is a sort of bit of an illustration of what the ultrasonic sensors are watching, what the camera and radar are seeing, and how the vehicle responds. So I think your question, Jason, was what have we learned?
Yeah, what was the most difficult part, the most challenging aspect of developing Autopilot?
Sure. That is probably ironing out the myriad of strange cases. One sort of fundamental challenge that we're faced with, but I think it actually makes us better as a result, is the need to release this feature worldwide to all of our customers. Now, worldwide, the roads vary significantly, right? The lane markings vary, the way people behave varies, the way intersections are managed or otherwise is very widely varying. What we found as we developed this is ironing out the corner cases. It's very, very easy to develop a demo that on a 10-mile stretch of road somewhere will wow sort of spectators. It is enormously more difficult to robustly capture all cases that you would see in the world, and so that's probably the single biggest challenge. And I think part of our confidence in releasing these features or going to full autonomy worldwide will, I think, as I mentioned, largely require probably hundreds of millions, if not billions of miles of real-world data to demonstrate to ourselves and to others that these systems are fundamentally better, probably 2 to 10x better than what a human driver is. I think that's the bar for introduction.
Well, how much better will Autopilot have to be to allow level 4 driver out-of-the-loop control?
Yeah, like I mentioned, I think 2 to 10x better than a human.
Yeah.
is the goal. I think that's the sort of the baseline for this. Now, if you're asking about what additional features,
what additional features need to be in there?
So that's a good question as well. As I mentioned, developing at both ends of the spectrum, both on the highway with auto steer and also in the driveway with summon, there is a convergence of technology that needs to happen, and that my team is working on today to bring together the capabilities of what we've done on the highway, what we've done in sort of ultra-urban environments, to do things like navigate very urban intersections, navigate sort of urban environments with with a larger and more widely varying set of obstacles and conditions.
Will the Model 3 be the first commercially available autonomous vehicle?
This one's throwing me for a loop, Jason.
Yeah.
No, our vehicles will receive the latest technology as soon as we have it. We won't wait for a given model to release a set of technology. Models S and X will continue to lead the way for the next little while in improvements. We fundamentally eschew the concept of model years. This adoption curve that I just described is exactly why we do that. We don't do that. And so we will not hold any technology for Model 3 that we will not have released already when it's ready on our other models.
That was an excellent save. What?
That was a good curveball,
Yes,
Jason.
I thought you'd enjoy that. What role did deep learning, did neural networks play in developing autopilot features, and how much of these features could you simulate within networks so that you were confident that they would perform well when they were on the road?
Yeah, it's a good question. Neural networks are extremely useful, but I would caveat a little bit the. I think in general the industry has been a bit bullish about the extension of neural networks across the stack, from perception to object identification, classification, clear through control and decision making. And the reason that I question that, the reason that I would caution those who expect to fall back on neural networks because they can perform a flashy demo, is that these are fundamentally behave like a massive statistical regression, which means that you have this extraordinarily long tail of use cases across the world that it's very, very difficult to turn the crank on a neural network and say, okay, there, we've solved the corner cases. In our experience, these corner cases, the additional use cases that we need to address require fine-tuning of specific pieces of specific algorithms rather than turning a crank on a massive machine that is guaranteed only to capture the sort of large center portion of what is fundamentally a very wide distribution.
One of our mutual friends, Steve Jurvetson, is in the audience. There he is. Steve is one of your initial investors. He gets the first model of all your vehicles.
Second.
The second.
Yeah, the second X.
The second. After you know who. I was astonished when he told me how quickly he became accommodated to Autopilot. Now, I know there's a bell curve of adaptation, but I always thought that human beings would have reservations about turning over autonomy to the vehicle. But Steve tells me, and you're going to tell me, that it happens very quickly.
Yeah, it depends on the person. I think both parts of your statement are true, that many do have these reservations. There was a great piece that was just written a couple of days ago by someone who had tried it for the first time. And he mentioned the same reservation, sort of this fundamental instinct over the last 20 plus years of driving that you take the hands off the wheel and you will die.
Yeah.
That is something that has to be overcome, but we have found that people become accustomed to it and very comfortable with it very quickly.
Yeah.
And the fact that the car is watching for and addressing, in many cases, scenarios or corner cases that you might not otherwise have had your eyes or attention on, actually alleviates some of the burden of the driver and allows them to focus more on the higher level sort of judgment and reasoning tasks that humans are fundamentally better suited for anyway. And allows them to do so with a bit more awareness while letting the car control some of the lower level details that simply don't warrant all the human's attention. I'm
going to bring Chris and Ryan back on stage in a second, but I think what you're telling me is these cars are so trustworthy at some level. They demonstrate better abilities in edge cases so quickly that drivers say, you know what, it's a better driver than I am.
Yeah, I think as the capability advances of Autopilot, that's actually one unique challenge that we have, is staying ahead of that in terms of continuing to improve the technology such that it is able to address the cases that the driver expects it to address, Until it does, it is a sort of important piece of our communication to our customers that Autopilot is not an autonomous system, and it shouldn't be used as one. It should be used with the driver fully engaged, fully in the loop, using their cognitive abilities just as they normally would to keep track of what's happening in the environment, to become accustomed to what the current iteration of the software, which obviously is evolving day by day, but stay very in tune with, okay, what are the set of scenarios that my car doesn't handle very well? I should probably be very engaged and very aware, particularly at those times. But we ask that the drivers obviously keep their hands on and be prepared to take over as needed.